Hello,
Hi Eric. Hi
hi,
Eric.
hi, Dr. Balash. How are
Hi,
you?
how? Fine, thank you. It's nice to meet you here.
It's great to speak to you.
Thank you, my friend.
Yeah. Maybe I'll introduce myself and move on to you. So I'm Eric from Sderot. I've been living there for the past 21 years. I'm married. I have three boys. Um, we've met in the past, and I am very aware of your personal tragedy. And a year after, I want to say that I have deep empathy to your tragic your tragic events, and I'm really glad we have the opportunity to speak to each other.
Thank you, and it's nice to meet you here in Washington, D.C. And I would love one day these meetings to be there in Gaza, in Jerusalem, in Ramallah, on Sderot, Tel Aviv. For me, you, and others to have more people with these meetings. I am a Palestinian refugee who was born in the Jabalia refugee camp in the Gaza Strip. I got my MD from the Cairo University, specialized in OBGYN at the University of London, then started working in Israeli hospitals in the departments of OBGYN for 15 years. And then I got my master degree in health policy and management from the Harvard University. In the meantime, I am working as associate professor at the Dalla Lana School of Public Health, University of Toronto, teaching a global public health.
Well, again, it's a pleasure, and I'll just add on to what I said in my introduction is that I'm a part of an organization called Other Voice. I'm a founding member. It's an organization that is trying to create a connection with people in Gaza, both a dialogue connection, but also trying to look into the future and see what kind of future relationships, what kind of nonviolent relationships we could have with each other. I'm wondering, I know that you just got back from Gaza, and I would really be interested to hear what your impression. I know you've been in Canada for the past several months, and I'd really be interested in knowing what your impression is of what's happening in Gaza these days in comparison to when you left.
In Gaza, since I left last July till now, the situation changed, but it changed for something worse. Because what I can say about Gaza, the place which is stigmatized by everything that starts by the word no, and for the Gazans in particular, who are part of the Palestinian people, Gaza is part of the future Palestinian state that we are looking forward to have side by side to an Israeli state. It's stigmatized by everything that starts by the word no. No life, no hope, no home, no electricity, struggling to find cooking gas. But they have one no. No for giving up their rights to live equally like others. And I think it's time for us, Palestinians and Israelis, to start thinking, as you said, the organization which is the other voice, the other human being, not just the voice, the other person who is similar to me, and what do I like for myself to like for the others. It must be mutual voice, not one voice.
Tell me, when you say you're talking about the very dire conditions there, do you feel that people still have any kind of hope, or is there complete desperation? Do you find at least some of the people that see that there is some kind of future, and what do you think this future could be? It's very easy to say let's all make peace, but things are pretty complicated on both sides, on both governments.
Life has no meaning if we lose hope. And there is no life if there is no hope. We are living because of the hope. And that's what I think. But this hope must be strengthened, and we must work to make this hope translate it into reality The Gazans now, they are looking and they are afraid from the future. They are expecting the wars
Yeah.
everywhere in the world, and the natural thing that tomorrow must be better than yesterday. But for the Gazans and the Palestinians, tomorrow is worse
You know,
than.
one of the things that people in Sderot and in other places in Israel um, perceive Gaza to be is a place where there's great extremism. And when I speak to people and say that the siege should be lifted or that people should be allowed um, to get more produce and that things should be reconstructed in Gaza, people around me say, I mean, what are you talking about? Gaza is a place where there are terrorists. That's where there are Hamas. That's where if we open the siege, then suicide bombings will return. That is of great concern to Israel and or at least to people that I speak to, and it's probably one of the main excuses why Israel says that the siege needs to be needs to be held. How what would you say to people that claim that opening the siege is just a returning of violence from Gaza that can affect all of Israel?
First of all, I am against any violent action, any military actions from both sides. Because for us as Palestinians and Israelis, as you said before, we are linked together. And even I believe that we are living and riding the same boat. Any danger, any harm induced to that boat will harm all of us, Palestinians and Israelis, and no one is far from the risk. But also once you speak about the Gazans, the misperception about the Gazans and the Palestinians to deal with that as Hamas or terrorist. What is terrorist? Terrorist is a symptom. We have to deal with the disease. When we have a patient suffering of pain, fever, we must find the reason and the cause behind this symptom. Mm-hmm. There is a disease, and the Israelis must understand. And look at the Palestinians and also the Palestinians to understand that the Israelis are human beings as they are, and they must deal with the real cause of the problem,
But how do you solve the real fear? I mean, there is true fear by Israelis. I have a good friend that lives in Netiv HaSara, which is it borders with the Gaza fence, Gaza wall, and she has a true fear that by opening the border, she will be exposed to violence from within Gaza. So opening the siege for many Israelis symbolizes something that is dangerous.
Opening the siege and opening the borders is the first step, which must be accompanied by other steps to build this trust and to get rid of this fear. Mm-hmm. This fear can be treated and be driven out from among inside us as Palestinians and Israelis to admit the rights of each other and to deal with the disease. As I said, it's a nation, a Palestinian nation who is looking for his freedom. And I think no one values freedom as Israelis or Jewish. When Moses asked Pharaoh, leave us, free us, and that's what do the Palestinians need to live free. And at that moment, freedom and the fear that we are afraid and we are afflicted with, we will get rid. We must direct our forces and our military ways to fight against the fear between us.
Yeah. Again, I just want to try and repeat what I said before regarding, at least I'll say, you said that there needs to be a process or some kind of something that would allow things to get better. What kind of process could that be? I mean, for so many years, I'm working with my organization trying to connect to Palestinians. We find that many Palestinians are fearful of actually connecting to Israelis. They're fearful that from their own people, they're fearful from the other side. What would you say to your own people that fear to speak to Israelis, that think that it is not accepted by the Palestinians themselves?
What I'm saying to you, I am saying it to the Palestinians. First of all, the Palestinians and the Israelis are facts and realities, and they must admit their rights, both mutual rights, to live together. No one can deny the rights of the other. And there were two myths. It's enough to be creative in finding myths for our two people. The first myth that I learned, on the day of the establishment of Israel, they asked the first Prime Minister, Ben Gurion, what are you going to do with the Palestinians? He said, the old will die and the young will forget. And afterwards, after the establishment of Israel, the Arabs and the Palestinians were thinking the myth that we want to throw the Jews or the Israelis in the sea. Mm-hmm. Now, after more than 60 years, neither the old Palestinian died or the young forget. And Israel is a reality, and it's a fact there with people who are giving to the humanity. Mm-hmm. And that's what do we need to realize. And to understand the fact that we have to find the way to live together, even if it is not in peace, in respect, with justice and equality. What do the Israeli like for his children? Not in Sderot or in Ashkelon, in Tel Aviv, in Haifa, and other places. To like it for the Palestinian in Gaza, in Ramallah, in Nablus. And also the same for the Palestinian. Let us think of each other and not to be focused on ourselves, to be self-interest. We must get rid of that and look at the other side. The coin has two sides. Mm-hmm. This is the case, and that's what do we want to stabilize the situation and also in a long term run to build the trust, not by force, but by choice.
Yeah, my understanding of what we are going through is that there's great importance in this trust-building process, and I see Israelis around me with many, many layers of fear and distrust. I think the ongoing rocket shelling that is still occurring at a much slower rate now, but is still occurring in towards Sderot and towards other communities around Gaza, has significantly created more distrust towards the Palestinians and towards their towards what you were saying, that the Palestinians want peace, and I think that part of what we are trying to do is try and work on removing these layers, one layer at a time, of distrust, and bringing the human face and the human voice of people from Sderot into Gaza and from Gaza into Sderot. And it's an extremely difficult situation because on both sides there's this dehumanization that has happened for so many years. Gaza being so shut off from the rest of the world is always perceived by us by Israelis as the ultimate evil and the place where that we need to fear. And from speaking to Palestinians and from what is seen in the media, of course, Israel and Sderot signifies Israel in many ways, is something that needs to be fought against by the Palestinians. So I think it's a very extremely difficult challenge that we have here to try and again peel these layers of distrust and start building some kind of other future.
But I think, though I condemn rockets and I am against any violence, and I would love my Israeli friends to condemn any brutal action by the IDF. Understand, I say it louder in Gaza Strip, in Palestine, every place. And also concerning the fear among the Israelis. Can you ask yourself, why are you afraid? When I am working here, we are in New America Foundation, and if I am working with the staff here, and I find myself, I am not accepted by my colleagues, am I going to blame them to say, they are bad, they don't want me? Or do I need to look at myself and to ask, why? There is a reason behind that. And that's the first step for the Israeli side to realize this fear. What's their part? What is their role in that fear? This is one thing. And also,
but do you see this as a two-sided thing? I mean, do you see...
It must be two-sided.
Do you see the same responsibility on the Palestinian side?
Yes,
or do you see it mostly an Israeli responsibility to take?
It's two-sided responsibility, and I don't want even now to divide the responsibility. Both are responsible. Even the relative responsibility may be different, but both are responsible. And both of them must look and take care of that. This is one thing. The other thing, this violence which is happening in Gaza Strip and Sderot, it is not between Gaza Strip and Sderot. It's between a nation to a nation, which with all of the consequences on the other parts. And that's what do we want to look at it, not just to minimize it between Sderot. Sderot belongs to a state which is called Israel, to an Israeli nation. And Gaza Strip belongs to a Palestinian nation who is eagering and working hard to have an independent state side by side to Israel. How can we deal with the Gaza Strip to say if you know that, and I'm sure you know that, the Israeli people, they say, we left Gaza, but they continued to send Qassam rockets that I am against.
Okay, but so what do you see when you're talking about mutual responsibility, but also what do you see as responsibility of the other, the rest of the world? Israel in a way said, okay, we can't handle Gaza, we're getting out of Gaza, we're shutting it down.
Yes, how did they leave Gaza? How did they leave?
Okay, I agree.
Can you tell me how did they leave Gaza?
Yeah, I personally agree that it was the way that it happened was completely incorrect by leaving Gaza and shutting it down and not allowing any development.
And the other issue, did they leave Gaza?
No, but
are they recognizing that we are two partners dealing with it? When the Israelis started to say they left it with unilateral decision,
right.
And when the Palestinians decide or think of having unilateral actions, it's denied. It's condemned by the Israelis. Why do you like for yourself and not for the others? Now, for the Palestinian Authority, when they asked for resuming the negotiation, they said we are ready and we want to resume the negotiation, which must be accompanied by actions, translated negotiation to take action. And when they said we want to resume these negotiations, but we ask our Israeli partners to freeze the settlements, the Israelis immediately, they will say, we can resume it, unconditional negotiation. And if there is something with the Israelis, they will set up their negotiations. The last speech by Netanyahu, he asked the Palestinians to resume negotiation, immediate negotiation. And then he set up tens of preconditions for the Palestinians. What kind of, double balance?
Yeah, but Dr. Abuelaish, I want to, the political situation. I'm completely, it seems kind of hopeless as far as looking at our leaders on both sides. By the way, I think that the situation of the Israeli government is way beyond anything I can. I can understand, and I think that Israel has done awful mistakes all through the way. But on the Palestinian side, the fact that you are all fractions in the Palestinian world where the Hamas are in Gaza, in full control of Gaza, and the Fatah. So these are very large political questions that we all have our opinions and analysis, and I can talk forever about what I think is the right solution. But in the meantime, I can talk about what I think our leaders should do. What could you and I do? What are the things in the meantime that simple people that are not politicians, that are not elected officials, what kind of hope can we bring to our own people? Aside from talking on talking blogging heads and talking to the American people, what is there for people like you and me to do together?
I think because the problem that we don't know each other, Palestinians and Israelis, we are misperceived about each other. We are stereotyped. Definitely. And what do we need? To know each other, to meet, to speak, and listen to each other. At that moment, we will discover the humanness in each of us. This is the first. So what do we need? As much as we can to meet together, to bring more people together, even one-to-one at a time is important. So that's the most important. The Americans can play a vital role in mediating.
What do you think this role is?
In mediating, in facilitating. I am not against the support of the Americans to Israel. They can support Israel for the good deeds. And the good friend is the one who tells his friend of the bad things that he is doing and harming his friend and others. The Americans can open the eyes of the Israelis for the brighter future, the long-term run. That's what you said today. You are scared about the future of Israel. And that's what do we need. We need a brighter, secure, safe future which secures the future of all the Palestinians. And if the Palestinians are making something wrong, to tell them this is not the right way, not just to blame, to help them in correcting their ways on these mistakes, and also the Israeli side. That's what do we need at the civil level, the civil institutions, bringing more people together, educators, medical doctors. These are the seeds, I think, which will be the guarantee for the long-term run of collaboration.
But do you see, again, do you see this only as something that should be done on the national level between through official processes, or do you think there's room for grassroots organizations like ours that are trying to connect people that are, again, not necessarily policymakers, not leaders, not people, or they might be local social leaders or civil society leaders, but not people who are elected leaders. And since I am not a politician and I'm not involved in making political decisions, I see great importance in this type of work where we try to reach to the public and bring an alternative to the public opinion.
Political and peace agreements are not the end of the conflict. It's the start. It's the start of the peace. The peace agreement is the start of the peace journey. And we need to equip our people with the instruments to keep this peace agreement active and run forward. What you are doing is vital, and we must not underestimate our action and what you are doing and others are doing. It's vital and it's important, whatever the size of it. Bringing one Palestinian with an Israeli, and this circle to be doubled, 2, 4, 8, 16, that's, as I said, this is the guarantee for this peace agreement, if it was achieved, to survive longer.
Yeah, well, first of all, I agree totally with what you're saying, and a lot of what I do in my in my work is to try and bring Israelis and Palestinians together to listen to each other, to hear each other's stories, to try and see how together we can build partnerships. I do this through, I didn't mention this in my introductory, but I do this through an organization called the Center for Emerging Futures, which I work at. And so we bring people to places that both Palestinians and Israelis can meet together, like in Beit Jala, where it's a place that most Palestinians from throughout the West Bank can go to, and Israelis can go there as well safely, and spend weekends and discussions together, and then try to together meet and create these partnerships. The main thing regarding Gaza is that Gaza is cut off from the rest of the world, and unfortunately the siege that Israel is imposing on Gaza is not allowing most people from Gaza to leave Gaza. Regarding the siege, I've realized that the few occasions that we were able to bring people from Gaza to these gatherings, we've actually realized that they're the same as the Palestinians in the West Bank, and they're seeking the same hope and same change that people in the West Bank are seeking, and the image that we have of extremism in Gaza is far from the truth. My connections with people, with other people that I know from Gaza have proven to me that there is a real ability to create these connections to people that are seemingly our enemy, or seemingly those who are the ones that we are supposed to be fighting against. And so that's something that does bring me hope, though the whole reality of the region is one that does not completely bring too much hope. I mean, I think we're on a pretty difficult route to try and bring optimism to the rest of the society.
I am very happy, really, when I'm speaking with you, Eric. We are speaking the same language. You speak English, I speak English, you speak Hebrew. Even I feel more comfortable and more close to you.
I wish my Arabic was good enough to be speaking to you. I understand it, but don't speak it well enough.
I would love, really, when we speak the language, the Hebrew language, how close I am to you and you to me, and we are honest with each other. Honesty is important. And to deal with me and dealing with you as at the human level, and I think our people there, our leaders, their roadmap should be not the territory. The roadmap is the humanity. And there is good saying. Sometimes we try to find the excuses. This small land, the Holy Land, it can be the paradise. This small house can fit for millions of people, but it will never fit for a few fighters and enemies. So we must get rid of this disease, to feel hatred and enemy, and you don't want or to accept the other, because this thinking is destructive to both Palestinians and Israelis. Let us bring both people together as what you are doing. More minds, more hearts. Not as a Palestinian or as an Israeli. That's the map. That's the value that we have to insert and to root among our children, that they have to defend the rights of each other. The Palestinian to feel linked with the Israeli, and the Israeli to feel linked with the Palestinian in their future.
Yeah, but tell me how. Absolutely. I mean, first of all, I really feel that we're aligned in our hope and what we believe the future should be. But how do we deal with extremism from the Palestinian side, and extremism I see from the Israeli side, people who are continuously working to undermine any hopes for a quiet and nonviolent reality in our region. How do we? I mean, what can I can probably say what I see on the Israeli side, but What do you see would create a more moderate type of person in Gaza, in the West Bank, in the Palestinian world?
Yeah, I think when we look at extremist and someone in thinking, that's what I do, to ask myself, why is he going to do this act? If the patient is sick and he is not controlled, he has diabetes uncontrolled, I have to ask, why is he doing that?
Mm-hmm.
And to help him in that, and he must admit that he is sick. This is the first
Okay,
thing.
but that's part of, I think the part of the problem is that it's extremely difficult for a person that feels that he is serving his people and trying to struggle for freedom, or on the Israeli side, settling the territories where the settlements are, and doing what they believe in very deeply. I think these are people, I think, on both sides of the reality that are very they're very convinced in their beliefs. They're very they have deep maybe religious or ideological reasons to believe in what they're doing and do what they're doing. So, I mean, are these things that you see that, I think that these are long processes. I don't see them as something that we can immediately change or control.
But what do we consider extremist in both sides? We have to ask, what do we consider ourselves, the wise people, not the extremist?
Mm-hmm.
What can we do? What makes this extremist flourish and increase is what do we call the good people to do nothing.
Mm-hmm.
We must increase our number. We must transmit the message and deal with those people to bring them, or even if we can't contain or eradicate them, at least to minimize them.
Yeah, my feeling regarding this, by the way, is that my understanding regarding this is that the vast majority on both sides are people that are just seeking, quiet and sensible life, place to bring up their children, to live in dignity and freedom, and not to be afraid. And I think that this is a very clear and simple thing that the big majority on both sides want. However, unfortunately, in Israel, I see most of the population are a population that are rather comfortable with their lives. We all complain. People always complain, but within this comfort, it's it's extremely difficult to step out of the living room and say, I'm willing to make an effort to do something else that will actually help in making a shift in reality. And I think on the Palestinian side, things are not the same, in the sense that people in Palestine and in the Palestinian territories are not as comfortable, definitely not as comfortable as the Israelis are. And however, I don't see a vast majority of Palestinians either saying it's time to figure out an end to this ongoing conflict. So I think there are people like you and me and other organizations. I think unfortunately we are not enough, but there must be a way for us to reach out to the public and create some kind of understanding that this ongoing reality, as you said before, is something that will only lead us to maybe self-destruction, and definitely to ongoing violence and pain and deepening of the fear and the distrust. So, I think, it's a very slow process and unfortunately I don't see things happening overnight, and, I see myself very committed to the process. However, it's very, there are a lot of concerns because, the next war is probably not too far around the corner.
I fully agree with you. Continuity of our efforts is vital, and we must continue. We must not give up. The opposite, we must be determined and persistent on that. But the other thing, everything is relative. the pain and the suffering in each side, there is pain and suffering, but it's relative. Look to the Palestinians, and also when we ask the Palestinians, please, there are what do we call extremists among the Palestinians. How can we strengthen the vast majority of the Palestinians to oppose that?
Yeah.
It must be by actions, not just ask the Palestinians fight against what do we call the extremists. How can we fight against them if you are not offering me something to convince those people, or at least to convince the majority of the Palestinians to approach and to join what do we call the peace camp? This must be accompanied by action. It is not just by words. You know, when you want someone who is hungry to ask him, you must be healthy. How can I ask him to be healthy? He needs food. He needs the bread. It needs a flour.
Yeah.
And we need something on the ground. It's, to be honest, and I am sure you share that with me, the ball now, it's in the Israeli court. They must take action to help the Palestinians, and at the end, this will help the Israelis.
Mm-hmm.
If we want to move forward and to minimize and to contain those extremists who are harmful and destructive to Palestinians and Israelis. Otherwise, this epidemic will eat all of us.
Yeah, well, in a way, I agree with a lot of what you say. I think there is great responsibility for the Israelis because they are in control and they have the military power. However, I think that again, I believe in mutual responsibility. I think that that we've made extremely terrible mistakes along the way that have harmed our own people, and the same for the Palestinians. I mean, the Palestinians have also made almost every single possible mistake over the years and over the history, and I think these mutual mistakes have actually led us to this almost feeling like we're at a dead end. But I agree. I mean, I completely
It's
agree.
A mutual. I agree with you. We must take responsibility, both sides. It's a mutual responsibility,
Yeah.
and the goal must be achieved jointly.
Yeah.
If we want to start, can we learn from those mistakes? Can we learn from the past to shape our future? And if we want to shape our future, as I said, as a joint project, not to be waiting for each other, do this, I will do that.
Yeah.
The opposite, we must do it together. If I didn't achieve one goal, you must be helpful to me as an Israeli. Why you didn't commit yourself to that? Can I be of help to you, to help you to achieve it? Not to say you didn't that, so now I stop it. No, we must be serious to achieve that goal with each other. The goal, which is our children and our future.
Yeah, definitely. Well, I'd be very, very, very pleased to work with you together and in trying to bring these voices to the public opinion, to the public, to the masses on both sides. I try to find opportunities to speak to Palestinians, and I think that it's extremely important that you have the opportunities to speak to Israelis and speak together. And Palestinians and Israelis speak to their people and create some kind of optimism, some kind of hope. I really trust that it's possible, even though it's a long and difficult road.
It's difficult road, but not impossible.
Yeah.
It's difficult, and this difficulty, we can overcome it by our sincere efforts and will, and to act with it. As I said, it's a matter of urgency and it's a matter of action, not just sitting, because no one can come to help us as Palestinians and Israelis. We must help each other.
Yeah,
and we must deal with the issue by ourselves. Maybe others can mediate, can help both of us, but it's our responsibility to deal with it, as this disease will never discriminate between a Palestinian or an Israeli, and disease doesn't know barriers. And this violence and this conflict, which is a disease, no one is away and far from it, from the consequences of this conflict.
Well, yeah, I think that this kind of dialogue that we're having between us, even though we are very close maybe in our ideas, but we have very different angles that we're coming from. You from the life in Gaza and me from the life in Sderot, is something that is of great importance, because I think we are both, of course, what you have personally gone through cannot be compared to anything, but what both Palestinians and Israelis on both sides of the border have gone through over the past several years, and Palestinians for the past 61 years maybe, is something that I think people in Sderot and the region can understand more than maybe other people around the world, because we've also been directly affected by the consequences of this reality. So, I hope that our organization, that Other Voice, will be able to somehow bring and continue bringing these voices from Gaza to the Israeli public, and maybe, again, step by step, bring awareness both to the conditions and the almost impossible reality that Gaza is at with the siege and with the complete disconnection from the world, and also to the humanity that exists there, and through that maybe create some kind of change.
And that's the feeling, what did you say? When I'm speaking with you to speak with Eric, I'm speaking with Eric as someone who's close, who's a human, not as an Israeli, and that's what do we want, the Israelis and the Palestinians. Look before, if you go to visit Shiva Medical Center, Soroka University Hospital, Echelov, and many hospitals, and to find the Palestinian patients with the Israeli patients, I don't think one day any one of them dreamed to share the room with one another, because they don't know each other and they are scared of each other. And now in their sickness, they are sharing the same room and speaking together openly.
Yeah.
Do we need to be sick to know each other? Why not to meet and to know each other while are we healthy?
Dr. Abuleish, I'm aware of the fact that you have been living in Gaza for your whole life, and I know that there was a reality between Gaza and the Sderot region, before, that was not as violent as it is now. What can you share any of the memories that you have from previous years when violence did not exist like now?
As you know, my family came from a village called Huj, close to Sderot.
Very close to Sderot.
And they were deported from their homeland in 1948. Mm-hmm. But what do we use now, coexistence? It's the new term. It has been practiced before 1948 between Palestinians and Israelis. Mm-hmm. They lived with each other as friends, with good relations, and running a normal life with each other. It's not new. We are not inventing the wheel. It's something old running between them, and hope one day, the same days that they lived together before 1948, to come soon.
I've spoken to people, in their 50s, 60s in Sderot, and they told me that the relationships between people in Sderot and Gaza were extremely good relationships. People used to go to weddings. People used to, of course, there was trade, and many people from Gaza used to sell their produce at the market in Sderot, and people from Sderot used to go to the beach in Gaza, or go to a restaurant there, or go to the dentist there. I mean, is this a kind of reality that you remember? It's something
good. I remember that, and I know that, and I lived with it.
Right.
And it's good, and that's what we want to go beyond that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Israelis to come to visit Gaza as tourists to enjoy it, most welcome. And also, for the Gazans, they welcome the Israelis and they enjoy that. And Palestinians from Gaza, they used to work and to enjoy their life being in Israel. So can we go beyond that not just the normal life we are running. The human needs are more than that, to feel independent and free. Israelis, they have their own state. I would love one day not to be labeled as a Palestinian with undefined citizenship, suffering with the airports here and there, to have my independent state and an Israeli citizen to come to visit Palestine, and the same for a Palestinian citizenship to visit an Israeli state. And that's what do we need. It is not the issue just of eating. The mental and the spiritual health and the freedom of a human being is vital. It is not the issue of eating. Eating is needed, but well-being needs many, many other things. Freedom, independence, to feel free in movement, and to feel his identity is there as the Israeli who eager to have that, and he fulfilled his dream of having an independent state. Maybe the Israeli people help the Palestinians to have their own independent state, and I think at that moment the Holy Land will be the role model for the whole world of coexistence.
Hopefully.
And living together.
That's
what do we want.
Yeah, there is the potential there. I mean, it's such an amazing land, but it's so sad that so much pain has been and so much blood has been spilled on this land. Yeah, well, I really would like to invite you to come and visit me in Sderot, and I am looking forward to the day that I would be able to come and visit you in Gaza.
With the pleasure, really. I can't visit you to Gaza because I am scared about you and I want you to come back home. But feel free now.
Well, the day will come.
I can invite you to my temporary home in Toronto. Anytime, most welcome. Maybe one day, and that day will come soon, that you can come freely to visit me in an independent Palestinian state in my home in Gaza.
Inshallah.
Thank you, my friend. And I to send my best regards to all of the people there, my friends in Kibbutz Sderot, in Sderot, Nomica, and other people,
Great.
And the Israeli people.
Absolutely, and please, my best wishes to you and your family, and I just wait for the day that we can live together in the region and feel free to meet without all the blockades, walls of all kinds.
Thank you so much, and God bless you, and continue your efforts without any hesitation. Don't look to the side here or there. Be focused. This is the right way.
Ma salame.
Salam, habibi.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.